I can't see anybody saying so far they can't hear us. So I hope all your microphones and systems are working. We have prayed to the gods of technology yet again that we don't fall down. We have not got any videos for you today. All the video evidence is in sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we encourage you to go back and revisit those. So I think we're just about ready to go. So here we are. So good morning to you all. We're going to try and bring together physical preparation and see how you can use it, where you'll use it, when you will use it, and what you need to use it. Please do think of in advance any questions that you've had tinkering around in the back of your minds for the last 4 sessions, and bring those and we'll try and answer them for you. So we're talking from physical preparation about athletic conditioning. The need to be robust and create a robust athlete. The athlete that can handle a session and the challenges of the session time and time again in order to progress. An athlete that has the capacity for training. It builds the blocks for future work. When we talk about blocks right at the end, we talked about pyramids. We start at the base of the pyramid. We wish to avoid injury. Understand the triplanier movement of athletes. We move as 3-dimensional animals, all in the different movements at the same time. We need to revisit the fundamental movement patterns. Remember the fundamental movement patterns: lunge, squat, hinge, jump, plank. We could reference there, if you go back to number 1, Harriet, showing you some cracking lunges. Yeah, go back and see Harriet's lunges. And we're letting Harriet have a lie-in this morning because she goes to university tomorrow. So, but you can have a look at her lunges later on. If you want to go back and have a look at number 1. And we lay the foundation for strength and power training and higher intensity methods. So that's what the conditioning program looks like. There's the planes of movement. Watch your athlete. Watch yourself. Watch your athlete. They move in different dimensions at different times and at the same time. So we have the triplanier movement. The big screen, the fundamentals. So on the left-hand side, we have the triple extension. Think about standing up, triple flexation, sitting down, but this is squat pattern. Squat and stand, squat and up, triple flexation, triple extension. Keep the base, the center of mass over the base of support. Now that could be in any of the fundamental movement patterns. You quite often see, take a lunge for example, where the base is not over the center of support, therefore it is not stable. Consider the range of movement. Is it impinged? Is it a good range of movement? What could you do to increase the range of movement? What benefits are there in increasing the range of movement? So on the other side of the screen, we've got the fundamental movement patterns. We go from squat, double leg to single leg, lunge. Quite often people say, oh yes, we lunge forward. What about lunging backwards? Go back to Harriet and my ladies with the medicine balls, lunging with a ball that moves over the lead leg, lunging with a ball that moves over the head. Standing by a wall and in a lunge, and now throwing reactive throws to the wall. Push and pull with band, brace, front and plank. And if you invert the brace, front, plank, you end up with a bug. Hinge, land, drop and jump. You can then go back to revisit Laura and Amy with their squat patterns. As simple as squatting against a wall. And as Laura would tell you, it's not that easy. Laura's going to stay with us, by the way, but Laura's having a lie-in this morning as well. We've got to give the psychologist there a bit of a lie-in this morning. Well, she might be out there, I don't know, I haven't seen her yet. So there's the fundamentals. Again, just think if there are any questions that you need to ask around any of these screens, this will be your chance to do it, because Darren and I are going off on holiday after this. You will assess your athletes. When do you assess your athletes? Every time you see them. But there's reasons why you would assess an athlete. You will identify where there's a possible dysfunctional movement, an impingement. You're looking to reduce injury or the potential for injury. You want to get to it before it happens. So many people only start doing things after they are injured or after their athlete's injured. You want to reduce the incident recurrence. Now, quite often, if you especially you speak to the endurance community and say, how many of you have got a problem with Achilles? Everybody puts their hand in the air. Well, let's start doing some work so you don't get problems with your Achilles. Athletes continue to present major physical limitations all the time. Now, excuse me, if that's the athlete's fault or the coach's fault. Personally, I think it's the coach's fault. Sorry, coaches. It's your job to do something around this. Performance enhancement, we want to get better. We want to get faster. The physical qualities and the technical qualities improve the whole quality. We want to stay in the game a long time. So performance and retention. And if you get better technically, you can tolerate higher loads and perform better. So there are some reasons for assessing. How would you assess? Here are some basic assessment screens that we put up. Straight leg raise, shoulder mobility with the stick going down the spinal column, holding both sides, the forward lunge looking for right angles, overhead squat. I think we should bracket there that, as you saw when we put my young ladies through squat patterns, maybe overhead squat is one screen too far for a lot of people. Let's just start with the squat. And knee to wall, which is the extension range of the ankle joints, and therefore working around Achilles. This will give you your current format and current restrictions and your current range of movement. What you've now got to decide is, where are your athletes restricted? Where are their current range of movements? And what are you going to do to help them get around it? I would say that we would then get around it by going to self-myofascial release. Here is something that we looked at with the help of Neil and various other people. Self-myofascial release will give interventions that will start to help you break down locks in fascia that you can do yourself. Remember, we looked at fascia and we could see how fascia goes throughout the whole of the body. These are just two ranges, and we talked about self-myofascial release, getting a lacrosse ball and gently rolling your foot really slowly. And if you think you're rolling it slowly enough, you're probably rolling it too quick. But rolling the whole of your foot, and you will soon find the knots and muscles that need to come out. And I'll go back to Neil's videos here. Just a cracking video of the listening foot, where you could see the foot was actually responding to the work that it was doing. It was no longer a plank, basically. It is a lump and a plank. Excuse me. It is a listening and living creature. You can feel it. Remember the thought that fascia is a 3D, the 3D skeleton that covers all your bones, your muscles, your tendons. This is what you need to do to help you move on. So we've got self-myofascial release. Excuse me. We talked about the trunk. How many times do endurance athletes, endurance coaches say, I need more core work, I need to do more work around my core? If you look at the screen there, you will see that the core is only a little bit of your body, which is only a small portion of your trunk. It is trunk conditioning we need to work at. And then we moved on with this to show Amy and the girls using medicine ball throws to show you how trunk conditioning can be used. Just one 3K, in their case, a 3K medicine ball, a decent ball, but throws, chops, overhead, slams, all sorts of throws we showed you that they can do. I hope that most of you have seen those videos, but do go back and reference them again if you have to. So we talked about the core, and then we sort of said, well, what happens if you don't? And if you look at the poor person, he says, on the right, that's what you're going to see. How many of you can see that in athletes or runners on the road or on the track that you pass, and you can see that the bucket of water, which is the hip complex, is tilted, so the water is spilling out, the abdominal wall is weak, you've got hamstrings that aren't working correctly, there's no activation within the glute. What we're trying to do is get somewhere towards the person on the left. It takes a long while, but you can do it. It can be done, and you can do this. We did talk to you about using Oregon circuits and various other methods that we could use to get to this stage. We talked about buckets and balloons in the very early stages, where you've got a helium balloon tied to your head, pulling you up, and the bucket, which is a hip complex, we're pulling the front of that hip complex up towards your navel and holding it there, which will actually activate the glute as well. I hope this is not going too quickly for you, but we have covered all of this. Do give us some feedback, some questions. If you want me to go back over slides, to revisit slides, or talk a little bit in more depth about any of them, we will. We came in at the first part, we talked about robustness. This is a supercompensation model, where you can see on the left-hand side, the work capacity is either really good, too easy, correct, or too hard, and this is what will happen. And you can see where you want to have adaptation and where you want to move on. On the right, you've seen what happens when you get it wrong, where you are safe or where you get injured. Another area that to consider is that athletes will adapt. So if you throw at them the same session time after time after time, there will be a case of adaptation. There will be no progression because they've adapted to it. So you have to change the stimulus. We went to the pyramid of multiple throws. What I'd like you to do is to look at the bottom of the pyramid, where you will see that all of those patterns that we worked through, we talked about the stability through the shoulder, we talked about squat patterns, we've talked about lunge patterns, we talked about rotationals, and we talked about drills. And you can see that we worked our way up this multiple throws pyramid, and yes, I included that in the trunk conditioning, and because what it is, but the trunk conditioning is where we came in at. We moved to multiple jumps. So again, we looked at the bottom, and we had the squat patterns, single and double leg, lunge patterns, drills. We moved to box jumps. We see some box jumps and some hopping and some standing broad jumps, and also pogos, bunnies, and all sorts of things. We moved our way up the pyramid. And again, I would say to you, with your athletes, for goodness sake, start them at the bottom of the pyramid. Make sure that they are competency based and not time managed. Can you do it? Yes, move up. Can you do it? No, stay where you are. So in summary, we used physical competency. We want stability, center of mass over base of support. We need good foot contact, remembering we're talking pretty much on a full to 4 foot contact. We want control through the range of movement. The larger the movement, the more difficult it is to control. Definitely center mass, base of support, trunk is essential, and you must get the fundamentals right. Progress is great, but you must earn the right to progress. And you, as a coach, have the right to regress your athlete to a point where they can learn and can do. So what will you do? Here's my challenge to you. With physical preparation, how will you factor it into your program? Where will you factor it into your program? When will you factor it in? I know it sounds a little bit, oh yeah, but it's important. I'm sitting at home, well, I'm talking to you at the moment, but I'm sitting at home currently writing my program for my athletes coming up. And physical preparation is a big part of this. What may you want to use with your athletes? I would certainly make sure you've got or they've got even a lacrosse ball, an orb, which is a 5-inch ball, a decent skipping rope, a reactive medicine ball. I use Jordans. You don't have to use Jordans, use whatever you like, but one that actually will react, and some resistance bands. It's a great place to start. And it isn't going to cost you the earth. Please do not stop learning. Think now, we've fed you some little seeds of thought. I hope that you're thinking well. I would say you never stop learning, ever. Read Ready to Run by Start and High Performance Long Distance Running by Sunderland. You will not sit down and read The Supple Leopard, but please use him as reference, and The Law of Running from Noakes. So also Fascia is another good reference book. I invite you now just to have a little think about what we've said and fire us some questions if you would like to. It may be that we have answered all your questions, which would be very nice. Or if you've got any questions on what we have said, what we have shown you, then please do put them up. As I say, we will not be having any further webinars for a month now, giving you time to digest what we've said, seen what we do. But don't be afraid to ask any questions that you have. We're quite happy. It doesn't necessarily have to be about what you've seen today, but we will try and answer what you have. We'll give you reference points as well, whereby we point you towards the Southwest Endurance Network, where there are lots of good reference points and practitioners out there, from physiotherapists to physiologists to dietitians, all sorts of people. So you can have a look at the Southwest Endurance Network. And we would like to hear from you going forward on how you're getting on with your physical prep. Isabel, hello. Developing from a box jump to a single walk off. My athletes have problems going from 2 to 1 leg. Okay, well, if you are jumping off a box to walk off, I would suggest that you start off with run throughs on mini hurdles. You're quite right, you should be going from 2 to 1 leg, or double to single. But I would also say that you might have to spend more time with double leg before you progress to single leg. So, which is where I'm saying run throughs without the jump over mini hurdles, little 6-inch hurdles, 4 to 5 pigeon feet apart, and run through. Once you've got that going well, you could then say a very low jump to a box to run through. I would ask why you want to go from a box jump to a run. I might go from box to jump to box to jump to box to jump, and then just run off the edge, because you get more of a rhythm going from than a single box jump. So that might be a problem that you're getting. So if you had 4 or 5 low boxes and just one counter movement between each, so jump to box to floor to box to floor to box to floor, and then run off, you might find that that rhythm is more suitable to them as well. I think there's a whole heap in there, Sylvia. Will the number of sessions differ whether your athletes are experienced or not? Your session will differ depending on how much time they've got. They might be at work, they might be at school, they might be retired, all sorts of things. There might be childcare issues, but definitely the sessions should reflect the experience or the learning of your athletes. Therefore, you must be giving them enough time to recover between high intensity sessions, and that would normally be 48 hours. And you would be factoring in a rest period. Amy has just been talking to me before we went online about her week, and she's factoring in yoga. It's a session, get in there. So yes, the number of sessions will differ depending on how experienced your athletes are. You've got a young man, maybe you've got somebody who is headed towards an Olympic program, I don't know. Well, his sessions are going to look very different from somebody who is looking as a school athlete. So definitely, yes, Sylvia. Do you find using lunges forward and backward is a good way to correct the problem of feet flicking out at the end of the swing phase, along with core and hip strengthening? No. I would go again for in the first instance running over mini hurdles, because then you can ask the athlete to consider driving through their knee rather than swinging their foot around the hurdle. So it could be done really slowly to begin with and move to a jog, to a run, to a sprint. The lunge pattern will help you find where the foot placement is going wrong, because it might toe in or toe out. So therefore you can point them towards some restrictions in range of movement that you can use self-myofascial release and go sit on that lacrosse ball. But I would say that to me, I would go back to the basic drill of running over a very, you don't even have to have a mini hurdle. You could draw lines on the floor and get them to make sure that they're driving their knee over the line as you go. But you rightly say it is a lunge, but I would go for a bit more mobile to begin with. Do you have any recommendations, I guess that is, to have stability work as part of the warm-up, or have more separate? I think all of these physical preparations should have a place within the warm-up and the drills. And to me, drills and warm-up are the same thing. So yes, you can factor them in as part of your warm-up to before an interval session. As we discussed, you can bring them in as part of an Oregon session. whereby you do a body of work, and you go to an exercise station, you have a small recovery period, and you go out and do the same again, therefore factoring it in. You can, if you have the facility, and let's face it, we're all a bit challenged with facilities at the moment, have a total physical prep evening, morning, couple of hours. We have a couple of garages at my local club that are knocked into one where we can do some stuff, but we don't use it at the moment because it's not COVID safe. So I would go for part of the warm-up, definitely part of an Oregon session. And I've been known to be a really mean coach and do some work at the end of a session when the athletes are tired, which is challenging, but there is a place for it. How have you covered how to recognize or spot where an athlete is on a graph of fatigue and recovery? This is my first webinar. That's okay, Andrew, don't worry. We've talked about it in as much as you, the coach, visually need to understand and see your athlete. Quite often you find coaches are spending an awful lot of time huffing and puffing trying to train themselves and not see the coach. My great mentor, Dave Sunderland, who's no longer with us, we talked a little bit about heart rate and recovery. And he looked at me in a very dour way and says, why don't you look at the athlete, Mark? And actually, it's a really good way of doing it. Yes, so how would you spot where an athlete is fatigue or recover? Heart rate is one. Heart rate coming up to 135 beats per minute, all ready to rock again. But also you will see and you will hear how they are recovering, remembering that everybody's recovery rate is different. And that's a real challenge, especially if you've got a group of athletes, is how to factor in different recovery rates. I think we did that. Oh, sorry. Your athlete in the box jump progression video set moved off the box in a single leg. Are you? Think you're talking about where my athlete literally just stepped off the box to a squat. I hope that's right, Isabel. And that's the way that I teach how to. And it's not a jump, really; it's a drop. So they stand tall on the box, 1 foot in front, and stop. Put one leg out and drop to squat. It's a practice, and it's something that you just have to practice time and time and time again. Maybe show them the video, because if you see a good practical example of how it works, that will help. Is yoga good for a sprinter? Yoga is good for everybody, and so is Pilates. And it is a great asset session to put in as a recovery session. Why do you have to run all the time? Why do you have to be in the gym all the time? Why do you have to sprint all the time? No, yoga is excellent. And providing, like everything else, you've got a good teacher and you go to a good practitioner, and you factor into a balanced program, it's an excellent place to go. If we run out of questions, actually, Dan and I go, we'll take this. Will the slides for this presentation be shared on the website? Yep, they are all going to be on the website, Andrew. If you go on to the EA Athletics Hub, you will find that there is the whole series of, let's start with physical preparation. And there's 4 other previous webinars, which will be all prefixed by let's start with. If you go onto the Athletics Hub and go onto the endurance section, that's where you'll find them. And it takes, as Dan said, it takes about a week to come up. I want to take this opportunity then to thank Darren for his continued support over this period of time. It's been great to work with, because we don't get to see each other, you see. This is the only time we get to have a chat. And for you, for your support and continued support for the series. We've obviously hit a button somewhere because people keep turning up and asking. We're still here for a few moments if you want to ask us any further questions. But there we go. I hope you've enjoyed the series. We've enjoyed putting it together. We would challenge you to use it, and we also challenge you to tell us what you would like in the future. So yeah, you can email me. Always feel free to email me. I'll try and respond, and you can email Darren as well and he'll respond, or you can post on Swen, and you'll get a whole heap of responses off of that. So be careful what you put. So yeah, we're out there. We want to hear what your experiences are of physical preparation and how you're coping with COVID, what you would like in the future and where you would like us to go. And if you are new to the series, then do please go back and look at the others. I hope that it's been it's a good bank of learning for you. Could you, hello Lawrence, could you do a series, I guess is what you mean, on how to correct running faults? I suppose that could be part of it. I think you would need to tell me what running faults you're trying to correct. A lot of it would come through drills, but yeah, we could do something with regards to looking at how to put together a template of running. But that could be a thought process. I'll go back, Lawrence. Also, go back to one of the very early ones, because one on drills, and have a look at that. Let's start with drills and see whether that sort of answers your question. And if it doesn't, come back to me and tell me where it doesn't, and it will give me an idea of where to go. Sorry about that. Thanks again for your attendance. Yeah, thank you for attending. It's been lovely to be with you all. And I will see you soon. And so will Darren. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, all of you. Have a lovely weekend. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing your experiences. I'm going to go offline now and just wrap up and say thank you. Enjoy.